get clarification for that.
Is that, I thought you said after you.
Okay. Counselor, would you give us clarification on the status of our new incoming board member? Will he or will he not be eligible for this raise? Should we vote for one?
If you don't vote on eligible. So this new incoming member is not voting on the raise, so they'd be eligible for the raise. That's just good old fashioned politics right there.
Yes.
So he would be the only one.
And Ed Pianalto.
Yeah, so that would be Ed Pianalto and
Ramon.
Ramon, who would be. And okay, so that being said, and the field being scattered, and no official suggestion for that, what that raise would be, has been entertained, as far as I know. So, do we vote on whether or not we want to do a raise and then vote on what that raise would be? Or do we discuss what the raise might be and then vote on whether or not we do that?
So the motion was put on the agenda as to discuss and vote on adopting ordinance 2024-3 for trustee compensation. And in order to adopt the ordinance, yes, an amount would need to be filled in. So I provided the board with the research that I did with figures from different municipalities, and that would be up to the board to determine if a discussion and a fill in the blank is warranted at this time.
A discussion and fill in the blanks.
And you
So right now, you need a motion to adopt the ordinance, and then we'll talk about
No, the discussion first on the
everybody
amount.
votes no.
If you don't.
If everybody votes no on the ordinance, though,
Or nobody can make a motion, and then nothing happens. It's up to you guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
make a motion. Whether to adopt it or.
can I entertain a motion whether or not we proceed forward with discussion or just kill it? Is that,
You could ask for a motion, and then if nobody makes one, then it's it. But you might be able to do the other thing too. But if nobody makes a motion, then there's no motion, then there's no action. So you could request a motion, and if somebody wants to make a motion, they can.
and I can request a motion in either direction.
These cells.
And then after, if that motion should pass, then we would discuss the amount.
What, can you clarify what you're asking? What motion will you be asking for?
Okay, so I want to know whether or not this board is in favor of raising the salaries of incoming members. And then at such time as those sitting,
You'd have to adopt the ordinance before you could do that, though.
No, because the ordinance is incomplete. There's no amount. So you
Okay.
can't adopt an incomplete ordinance.
All right, how do we get past this, Sarah?
Do you want? I would say, would somebody like to make a motion? And if you don't want to discuss it, you want to get past it, then nobody make a motion. Then there's no motion, and then it dies, and then we move on to the next thing.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the increase in compensation for ordinance 2024-3 be 0.
okay, we have a motion that this ordinance be, what was that word you used? Zeroed?
Zero
Uh,
increase in compensation for trustees.
remains the same. Okay, so we have a motion. Is there any discussion? Is there discussion
Yeah.
between a motion?
I'd like to have some discussion.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I was having technical problems, so I didn't catch the first part of the discussion about this, but you know what? Yes, it is an honor to serve on the town council. But it's also, and a lot of people maybe, and maybe even other members of the board may not get calls on Sunday and Saturday and in the middle of the night and et cetera, et cetera. But some of us do. And, I think the point is, how many people did we have run this last time? 2 or 2 empty seats, basically. Why is there so much interest in serving on the board? It's a pretty thankless job. So I'm not going to second a motion for 0. Sorry. And I know, Tom, you and I spent one day not too long ago listening to one of our constituents on the weekend. So, maybe some of the other members don't ever get called, but I know you do. I know I do. So is that worth something? Yeah, I think so. And I'm saying it, listening to what Clay's had to say, I'll vote for it. And as long as I'm on the board, I'll never see it. But if we ever want to get anybody else to at least consider to run for the board, I think we ought to at least consider looking at what Sarah's presented.
We're gonna consider road commissioner and ditch commissioner as well.
I think that should certainly be brought up, yes. Same reason. How many ditch commissioners, how many people have we had volunteer for the ditch commissioner? None. And Jesse, as Jake mentioned, yes, he does one heck of a job. And it's a pretty thankless job when he gets chewed out because somebody didn't call to get the streets plowed. Yeah, I would agree. There ought to be some compensation there. We want to be a town. Let's be a town.
Well, we have any other discussion? We have a motion on the table. So, do we have a second on that motion? Okay, we have no seconds.
Motion died.
Motion dies. So we're still here. Would anybody else like to entertain a motion? We'll see where this one goes.
I would entertain a motion. I would like to put forth a motion.
Go ahead, Eddie.
Sarah, could you read the averages again, just the average?
Sure, let me pull that. Oh, yeah, let's see. Okay, so for populations of 5,000 or less, the average for a trustee is $358 per month. The high was 1,243 per month. The low was 40 per month, and the median was 250 per month. And then for a population of 1,000 or less, the average is 232. The high was 700. The low was 40, and the median was 100. This is for trustee compensation.
It's permanent. Yeah.
So the low is 40 and we're at 25 currently, correct?
Correct.
Have you seen that?
What? Yeah.
Everybody. Let me know when you're gonna take public comments. I'd like to make public comments.
Okay. Any other discussion by board members? We are going to move then to public comments again at this time.
Do I have to get up?
Well, you have a microphone. You don't have to get up.
Okay, this is Sarah Gibb. I am stating this as a public comment, just as a matter of observation, although I will say that just being in my position, I am privy to just being able to observe maybe more things than the general public. But one thing that I wanted to point out in favor of increasing compensation for the trustees and the mayor is the fact that here in Pitkin, we do not have any staff who do any things. We do have our commissioners who work very hard, but when it comes to any level of town decision-making, really the board of trustees is it. We don't have a town manager. I don't really have decision-making power. Everything has to go to the board of trustees. So some of these other municipalities that also have a board of trustees, they don't have to rely on them for quite as many day-to-day type of decisions to help manage the town as we do here in Pitkin. The board of trustees and the mayor have quite a lot of hands-on things that they need to do here in Pitkin that might not be required in other places. And I think that as a resident of this town, it is important to do what we can to attract dedicated and qualified individuals to serve on the board of trustees and as our mayor. Thank you.
Once again, do we have any other public comments? Do we need to check the phone? Is the phone up and running? We're not doing that anymore. Okay. Jake, are you back?
Did I miss the suggested pay increase? What was the suggested?
There's
pay
not
increase?
There's not one.
There's not one yet.
Well, didn't Katie make a motion?
That there be one.
I thought there had to be a number associated with
Well, eventually there will be, yes.
it. So now it's just open, let's approve the motion, we can throw $1 million in there. No, I don't agree with this. Like the attorney said, this is good old fashioned politics where you have an incoming trustee voting consultant pay raise.
He's not voting, Jake.
Huh?
He's not voting. He's not.
He's not, well, he's not, he's not voting, so he suggested the pay raise. Okay, so he suggested it. Yeah, it's legal, but I think it's dirty politics, just like the attorney said, or old fashioned politics. And so, maybe he could recuse himself from the raise if he wanted to, then I would have a little more faith in it. But, I remember serving on a board, it wasn't for a town, but a church with 1,000 people. And I got 0 compensation. And there's what, 60 to 80 people that vote in this town. And, so there's 200 homes, 250 homes in town, something like that. So I think it's frustrating. I wouldn't say I'm ever in favor of the pay raise, but I think, let's focus on the person that makes a huge difference in this town. And that's the streets and ditches. And you guys are just gonna bypass that and he's gonna get ignored again. And, when he decides not to do it anymore, then we have a serious problem.
And I apologize. I don't know what that gentleman's name is, and I just want to make it clear that I did say that tongue in cheek, and maybe it wasn't the best thing to say. I do think the pay raise is nominal, and I do think it's important, as someone said, that to have it at least cover gas money. And nobody's making money on the trustee board. Nobody's making money as a mayor, and I do understand what he's saying. It is really important to keep good employees, but when I made the politician comment, it was more tongue in cheek. I didn't realize that there was that there was some conflict there with that with the raise. But yes, he is correct. Mr. Is it Romero?
Mr. Reed. Ramon Reed.
No, the incoming trustee.
Ramon Reed.
Ramon Reed, thank you.
Also. Yeah.
Future
Sure.
trustee Reed, would be allowed to have partake in whatever raise that he did not vote on, but he does also have the option, to not accept it as well. So that's up to whoever. But you guys are underpaid as towns go. I represent six other towns, and you with much even smaller budgets, and they're paid as much, if not more, than the trustees and the mayor there. But I understand everybody's points, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
I have a question for the attorney.
Please, go ahead.
Is it possible for us to have a special election and this be a ballot issue on the pay increase? For all property owners in town, taxpayers?
You mean about the pay increase for the trustees and the mayor?
Primarily the trustees. I don't have a problem with discussing pay for the mayor, but
You could set it for a ballot, but you'd spend more money than
Then the
you spend more
raise.
money doing a special election than the raise for probably 5 to 10 years. Just, I mean, the answer is yes, but you also need to consider the cost of if money's that tight for the budget, it typically costs quite a bit of money to have a special election or have a special vote on something like that. And what you'd be talking about is a citizen referred referendum or citizen referendum for, a raise or an ordinance or whatever. And somebody would have to vote to either, it'd have to go on a ballot, and then the ballot would have to be mailed to everybody in town, or you'd have to do a different type if you're not going to do a mailed ballot, but they're typically expensive.
just interested in trying to avoid the perception that we're doing the same thing that our congressmen do.
Right.
Just doesn't seem right.
No, I understand. I mean, I think the people who will actually look at the numbers and see that you're only talking about, $15 a month raise, that you're not trying to, make your trustee position a get rich quick scheme or anything. I think it's reasonable, but I understand the perception, and that's just something, the board's going to have to deal with. I think the main issue is that the statute disallows anybody who votes on it to get it. So I don't, congressmen vote themselves raises and retirement that they get to see. Trustees don't get to do that. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, in my opinion.
Okay, easy solution to this is push it off till next month.
Well, that would take care of anybody on the sitting board getting the raise, wouldn't it?
And Mr. Reed could vote on it.
Okay, guys, we've spent enough time on this. We need to wrap this up. I need some ideas quick. So just by way of Ed, please.
Ed Pialta, and for the attorney's reference, I will be on the board in April. So I'd make the recommendation to table the topic until April or May. We can revisit not only the trustee compensation. At that point, we could also visit street commissioner and the ditch commissioner compensation as well. In fact, I'd probably recommend we do the street commissioner and the ditch commissioner first, then discuss the trustee compensation, which at that time, all 5 of them sitting on the board would not be eligible. I think that'd be the fair and most transparent way to go about it.
Thank you, Ed. Any other public comments on this? Okay, back to the board. What do you guys want to do?
I'm prepared to make another motion.
You may make a motion.
There's a motion on the table.
Wait. I
Wait.
believe I
Oh,
have a
that's
motion
right.
out there already, don't I?
Yeah,
Seconded.
I think he does. What was it?
And I will
Motion,
withdraw my motion.
Oh, okay. That was a withdrawal, right?
yes.
Okay, Eddie withdraws his motion. Chris, you said, can you make a motion?
I will make a motion to table agenda item 3-2 and 3-3 until April or May.
Okay,
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table item 3-2 and 3-3 regarding trustee and mayor compensation until the next sitting board. Is it time to vote, Sarah? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Was that an abstention somewhere? Okay, I missed it. Thank you all, really. I appreciate the fact that we got people out there looking out for some of our other commissioners as well. Thank you. Item 3-4 is review the treasurer's report, discuss and vote on March 2024 disbursements. Everybody had a chance to look at those? I looked down through the disbursements on the check detail and I didn't find anything irregular that I even wondered about. Do you have any questions on that?
I do not.
Does anybody else on the board have any questions on the disbursements for this month? I'm sorry, not this month. March 1 through 18, 2024.
I do not. This is Lucinda.
Just that he know.
Okay. Well, then on that note, is this public knowledge? Is this public knowledge? So I should ask if there's any, I could ask if anybody out there has a public comment on our check disbursements? No. Okay. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept and vote to accept the March 2024 disbursements from the treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion to accept or approve the March 2024 disbursements as presented.
I will second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Batteries died.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed? No opposed. That was unanimous, wasn't it? Okay. So it is time now for, do we have any updates, planning or discussion that we want to do? Okay, so it is time now for the reports. Most of those reports are written. Are we going to do that in between and then do reports later? Okay.
I mean, you don't have to. So
I
I
mean,
guess
could I go ahead and get reports and then we'll close the trustee meeting and go to the Board of Health meeting? Okay, so the reports are online and can be read. Does anybody have, any of our commissioners here have anything they want to get up and verbally present?
Tom,
Yes,
under the mayor's report,
go ahead, please.
I would like a committee of people from the town to put together a recommendation for compensation for the street commissioner and the ditch commissioner.
And who would we get to be on this committee? Shall we, how should we do that?
I just asked for volunteers. We have a lot of people that seem to
Okay.
be interested, so.
Can we post that online, Sarah?
Yes.
Say again? Put you down. Okay, we have one volunteer already. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we will post that online, that we need some volunteers in order to discuss compensation for some of our commissioners, and I think that's a really good idea. So are there any other reports that need to be made?
Clerk has no report.
My report's written. Couple of permits. Okay. So at this time, if there are no other issues, we will adjourn the Board of Trustees meeting, and we will move into the special addition to the item, the Board of Health meeting. So it is what time?
7:42.
7:42, and the Pitkin Town meeting is adjourned. Okay. Anybody need a break? Okay, we're going to move into our Board of Health discussion. It was a special item on the agenda, and it is labeled discuss and vote response to possible regulation 43 violations on 618 State Street. State Street, yes. So the concern on 618 State Street. So at some point, Todd Adams gave permission for the placement of an RV camper trailer, the one in question. And that was moved in on or about Memorial Weekend of 2023. And over the course of, from then on, I personally relayed both to Todd and to Billy that this is not going to work out. But here we are, nearly 9 months later. And so let me just read some stuff here. So this is from Reg 43, page 18. What's that? Microphone. Regulation 43, page 18. Let's see if I can pull that up here. So enforcement, so this is Reg 43, page 18, H1. Enforcement of regulations regarding Reg 43 and all of its composite components will lie with the local Board of Health, enforcement and so forth. See if I can find that. I will read it to you exactly. Yeah, here it is. The primary responsibility for the enforcement of the provisions of the OWTS Act and the regulations adopted under said article will lie with the Board of Health. So that being the case, this is our job. So what has Billy got over there at his RV camping trailer? And I did ask him, and he has a composting something. So in regard to that, regulation 43, page 81. You want to see it? I've got some extras. So regulation 43, page 81 says that any composting toilet must meet certain requirements. They must meet the NSFF standard and bear a seal of approval, blah, blah, blah. And then this is under a category of alternative things, incinerating or composting toilets. And the local health board may permit incinerating, composting, and chemical toilets. The use of any of these will not reduce the size of the OWTS required for whatever structure you're putting these things in. An incinerating or composting toilet may get permitted and may be used for toilet waste where an OWTS is installed for treating wastewater remaining after the removal of toilet waste, subject to the local health board and/or applicable regulations, and must comply with the Colorado plumbing code if a local code does not exist. So what we have is a composting toilet that standards are unknown. It's not permitted or plumbed per Colorado plumbing codes, and it's not part of an OWTS system. And so it is very much outside of regulation 43 parameters. So the question is, what do we do? And in looking through Reg 43, I did find a couple of options, and one option, although this is a bit sketchy, because this option deals with a non-functional or dysfunctional or somehow broken or otherwise impaired OWTS. So page 26, P1, we could have a public hearing, and at such time, then we could go for a cease and desist order, which would allow 30 days to fix the dysfunctional OWTS or to move out. But since it's not actually an OWTS, that really doesn't work very well. Or we could go with page 27. I don't think I have any of those to pass out. So page 27, Q2, says that upon finding by the local board of health that a person is in violation of this regulation, being Reg 43, which we just kind of ran through some of them, the local board of health may assess a penalty up to $50 for each day of violation, and so forth and so on. Well, $50 a day, that's probably less than some rentals, and that really doesn't, it's a fine, but it doesn't really solve the problem. And I want to read here on following that up to $50 per day. Page 27. Item number 2 on upon finding, no, wrong one. So we're back to page 18, H2, which says, in the event that the local board of health fails to administer and enforce the provisions of said section and the regulations adopted under the OWT Act, the division, that means state, may assume such functions. In other words, the state would come in and take over where the local board of health has failed. Where the local board of health has failed. So where we stand right now is we need to do something. This is outside of Reg 43, and that trailer has been there for 9 months, which is means that we have not done our job in as timely a fashion as possible as we should have. But it needs to move on down the road, and the question is, how do we make that happen? Mr. Attorney, you have been listening here, I'm quite certain. So what is the best way to approach this? Would you care to give us an opinion?
Yes, sir. I have an opinion. I don't know, how much you'll like it. I don't think using Regulation 43 necessarily is the best idea. Although it is, it's a regulation, it's enforceable. The problem becomes, as you mentioned, as you went through it, it's very difficult to kind of, I feel like the issue you have in front of you is this big and you're, or, the whole scenario where we're trying to make something fit into this Regulation 43 that doesn't really fit. And that has to do with the on-site wastewater treatment systems. So the entire premise of Regulation 43, as you pointed out, is based on on-site wastewater treatment systems, and then they go into very briefly into composting and incinerating toilets, et cetera. And there are, it's certainly within the board's determination to say, yes, we think this is a violation and fine. You have to then do a cease and desist order. And then if it's not cured within the time period allowed by statute, then you can start fining the person $50 per day. And that would add up very quickly, obviously. It's a $6,000 a month. Excuse me. Why can't I do that math in my head? $1,500 a month. Anyway, it comes out to a pretty steep fine if the person doesn't fix it. The question then is, how do you enforce that fine if they just decide not to? Because if they don't pay it, it's not enforceable necessarily in a local court unless it was written as a summons, et cetera. So my advice would be to either use your current code, which I don't believe the current code contemplates use of RVs for camping within town limits, or adopt a camping RV ordinance that you can enforce locally through code enforcement mechanisms. And those are very, common throughout Colorado municipalities. I just drafted one for Coal Creek a couple years ago, and they're very, that you can tailor them to your town. And what you do is you just make it illegal for anybody to camp in town over a certain period of time. That way you're not having to deal with inspections and public health and all these convoluted statutes regarding these on-site wastewater treatment systems, which again, I don't know if it fits in this particular situation. So my advice is to put on the agenda to discuss and pass an ordinance that regulates camping and use of RVs within town limits. Because otherwise people are going to start moving in with trailers and trying to live in them if you don't have laws against it. And trying to use Regulation 43 to combat those scenarios won't prove effective.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, you have a public comment when you're ready for that.
Okay. Any other board discussion or ideas?
Yes. I'd like to hear from the property owner.
Well, our property owner is not here tonight.
The property owner's here.
Oh, is he online?
He
My
is.
bad.
He is. He just can't figure out how to get his picture online.
Oh, well, we would like to see.
But we can
while
hear you.
we
That's the
listen.
good part.
Okay, Todd, are you able to communicate?
Yes, I can hear you if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, Todd.
Okay. What is it what question or what do you have for me, Eddie?
I guess just along with what's being discussed and the concerns, I think, Todd, the major concern, one of the major concerns with the town is about public health. And that's what we are acting as right now, is the local Board of Health. And I guess the concern that I would see is whether this fits into Reg 43 about OWTS or not. But to me, the concern is what is happening with the waste? And typically, there's two waste streams. Even if he has some kind of an incinerator or composting toilet, there's still another waste stream. And how is that being taken care of? How is that not presenting a concern for public health? And I'd like to hear from you how that's being addressed.
I think you're absolutely right. It probably is an issue. I would be willing to put in a septic system if that would solve the issue. It just seems that this is somewhat deeper. There's, we don't like Billy. We don't like the old camper. We have, Tom's wife and daughter tearing banners off the camper and things like that. And so if installing a septic system would solve the problem, I'd be glad to do it. Would that please everyone?
Well, what I see is it goes back to what our attorney said too, is I think we need to look at putting together some type of a improved camping ordinance to look at that. But if that is your plan, is for this to be long-term, then I think we definitely have to look at it from a Board of Health perspective of how are we protecting public health?
Sure. There was not a plan for him to be there past the summer. But they needed help, I guess, at the hotel, and he's helping with the construction over there. So I just sort of let it go on, Eddie. I didn't put a stop to it, so to speak. But I know, like I asked at the town meeting, I guess in August or September, if there were ordinances regarding unimproved property and camping and stuff, and there weren't. So I just sort of, I guess let it go. But I'd be glad to talk to Billy. If he wants to stay, I don't have a problem with that. I'd be willing to put in a septic system. But again, only if that will stop the focus that seems to be quite bright on that particular piece of property. Would that be fair?
Well, I think that should be part of our discussion, as Clay mentioned, that we need to look at putting together an improved camping ordinance. And that's something that we can consider, certainly, I believe, is, I believe one of the major concerns with any camping ordinance is waste disposal. And if you have a portable RV that you can either pull or drive to a waste disposal site, that certainly changes that perspective somewhat. But I don't see this trail moving. So to me, whether we're talking about waste disposal or long-term camping, there's kind of a blend here, it seems like. But I think that we certainly need to put together a better camping ordinance. But my concern is if you're looking at having him stay there through the summer, then I think we definitely need to see the waste disposal addressed.
Fair enough. Eddie, let me talk to him. In fact, I just sent him a text a little while ago about another issue. Let me see what he's thinking. I know the hotel is due to be finished, I think by June, something like that. So if he's not really helping work on the hotel, I don't have any reason to let him stay on that property any longer. But
Okay.
Working on.
Clay, do you have other comments?
I don't have any other comments.
All right, Tom, thanks. That's the discussion I had there.
Okay, so it looks like we have Pete Olson on audio anyway. Pete, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I'm not aware if the new counselor is familiar with ordinance 3, series 2013, which is the current town ordinance regarding camping within the town of Pitkin. And I think that it would be found that this particular instance is a violation of that ordinance. And I think as far as looking down the road to future use of that property, there are zoning regulations that would have a bearing on this. I know that's outside of the Board of Health issue, but I think this bears considerable discussion before any new development might proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, guys, we need a more defined. Ed Pianalto, please.
First off, if you look at the camping ordinance that Pete referred to, I believe it does say, and I don't have it in front of me, but I've looked at it now. I believe it does not include unimproved property. I believe. So that property is unimproved with camper on it, so I don't know that it pertains to that property. I would agree with Eddie. Camping ordinance, both camping ordinances probably need to be improved with enforcement provisions so that we can enforce any ordinances we have. The other question that I have is, it seems that we, like Todd, the property owner, said, we focused on the 618 State Street. Tom did a great job of explaining the composting toilet. Should also have a field of some type, a tank for the wastewater. That WTS Rate 43 also includes talking about incinerating toilets. I guess I'd like to know if the other houses in town have composting and incinerating toilets, have we been inspecting those systems like we want to inspect this system? I know of 3 other properties in town myself, maybe more than that, on top of this. And I guess I'd have to ask the Department of Health, maybe, if she inspects those systems like the other WTS systems, because I don't know. But I'd be curious if we are singling someone out, or if we're gonna look at all of them. Just my thoughts.
Thank you. And you're welcome. What? Lucinda, would you please?
Roger'd like to make a comment on my Zoom, so hang on.
Yes, there is provision in the zoning ordinance for construction on a property to have a temporary trailer there. If this guy is working for the hotel folks, maybe they could get permission for their workers to live in a temporary thing like this. And of course, they should apply for that when they got the permit. But anyway, that might be one way. It definitely says right in zoning ordinance. And this is separate from the camping ordinance. So camping ordinance does not apply when you are under construction. You get that permission from either the zoning board or the town.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sarah,
I'm
can
not
we-
sure how to raise my hand to speak. But one of your incoming board members has the same type of toilet that Billy has. So I would like to maybe entertain that he not be able to vote on any future motions or anything regarding this particular issue, because I think it would be kind of a conflict of interest. That's my comment. Thank you.
You're welcome. So can we have our attorney get started on pulling together a camping ordinance that would cover our necessities? So we would draw it up and send it to them for receipt. Okay, so we need a work session.
Yeah.
Just consulting with my town clerk. So it sounds to me like we need a work session. Definitely. We need to, as Ed brought out, take a look at what we do have for a camping ordinance and include some other things as well. Pull it together, and then we would submit it to our attorney, have him to tweak it and correct us and do such things as need to be done. And since most of us are still sitting on this board, would it be possible to set a work session date? Eddie, you got any time clear in the upcoming future?
Let me look at this. One comment I would like to make is, sounds like Clay has already drafted and put together some camping ordinances for some other communities. Instead of us having to reinvent the wheel, maybe we could ask him to provide us with some copies of those, if that would be possible.
And then we could look at them and maybe tweak them a little more.
Then
Yeah,
he's got something on.
if he would be willing to do
Instead of
that.
us spending.
But we would still need a work session after we got a hold of those.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
so I'm looking
Go
at
ahead.
what you guys have. You have camping that, this would fit into your current camping ordinance that says, somebody can stay within 30 days quarterly or 40 days consecutively in a year. Camping structures, it doesn't quite get into like the RV thing. So, and you could use your current ordinance to enforce the camping if you wanted, but I do think it's important in the long run to have maybe a little more beefier camping ordinance, and I'm happy to provide you some templates so that you're not having to start from scratch, as the mayor suggested. And I think that the major issue is, you're seeing some of the wastewater is an issue, but one of the other main issues is simply if the trailer is structurally sound for full-time residential use in a mountain environment. And the answer typically to that is no. And that's why towns regulate use of camping or trailers and RVs, et cetera, as permanent residences or allowed use over certain amounts of time, just because it's not safe to live in them, during the winter months in a town that receives multiple feet of snow. So anyway, I'm happy to provide some of those templates and to reinforce the ordinances that you already have. But I do think that you could enforce the current situation under your current ordinance if you chose.
okay, if you could provide us with some input on those other areas, and then
Sure. And I'll work with Sarah and get you guys some templates.
yes, thank you very much. And then perhaps a little more input on exactly how we would enforce this under the local ordinances and code that we currently have.
Well, at the moment,
If
you
you
could
could-
find, at the moment, under the current enforcement, you could notice the person, and then if the person didn't cure the problem, which right now you have the violation of paragraph 3 of ordinance number 3 series 2013, then you could impose a fine, and or you could abate. Basically, it's a nuisance. You could abate the nuisance, which means you could remove any vehicle, trailer, camper, or recreational vehicle at the violator's expense, and or they could be fined Fine in the amount of $250 per day of violation after the notice is received. So you have multiple options. You can fine and or abate the nuisance just by removing the issue. And then you would fine the owner the cost of any towing and storage. And then if the owner didn't pay, then you could lien the owner's property. And then if the owner didn't pay off the lien, you could eventually foreclose on the owner's property. I'm not suggesting that's where what you do with it. I'm just saying that's your options.
Sounds kind of brutal. Okay, that's our option. So I guess at this point, then we would notify our owner that should we give a grace period, a little time frame for him to get his act together and move out prior to instigating any fines or other actions?
Yeah, if you're asking me that, I always say that it's it makes sense, especially in communities, to give the person an opportunity to cure the violation themselves. That they might not necessarily be aware of an ordinance from 11 years ago, depending on how savvy they are, how much they read the local code, etc. If you have it posted, all that good stuff. But once they're given notice, then you can give them a reasonable time to cure. If there's somebody living in it, you also want to take into consideration, that human factor, that there's somebody living there and that you might be displacing them. And if it is somebody working, locally, and you want them to continue working locally, you might want to create, as someone said, an exception, just like many HOAs and towns do, that allow temporary dwelling in a trailer if you're in active construction of, say, a dwelling on your property or something along those lines. You could come up with whatever exceptions you chose, but the current ordinance doesn't have any of those exceptions. But that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to come up with one as a board. And then any decision you do make, just it is appealable to if it's a municipal court decision, if they appeal, then it eventually could be appealable to the district court. So you just want to make sure that you do your due diligence, you give people proper notice, and give them a reasonable time to cure before you take any action, especially action that would subject them to fines and or payment of costs of towing and storage.
Okay, so proper notice and reasonable time. And I would just point out, by way of reasonable time, that we've hit mud season big time. And this is a tough time to move anything. Oh, okay. Any other discussion from the board members?
Well, I would just reiterate what Clay said. The premise that this trailer is there, it was about construction. Well, I'm not sure, and maybe we need to look at that part of our code, but I believe the temporary housing was for construction on that site, not for working somewhere else. So maybe something we need to look at too. We look at beefing up our code is about temporary RV parking or whatever on a construction site will be on the site, not remote.
Yeah, I didn't mean to infer that anything was going on that site, if that came across.
Right. No, I just, that's what I've heard, is that basically the reason he's there is because he's working at the hotel. And yes, we have something in the zoning code about temporary housing on the construction site, but I think we need to make sure that it's clear that that is on the construction site, not at another remote location.
Well, the first thing we need to do then is to give proper notice. And it looks to me like that the reasonable time frame is contingent upon coming to some decision regarding temporary housing and where that can be or can't be. And so I don't know if I'll just share this. So I was talking to Billy the other day and he said, do you know anywhere else I can park? And I said, well, that's not something I've really thought about. It may be that there is somewhere else he could park. I'll have to think about that. The question, you know, so if he could find somewhere closer to his construction project to park that thing, they have outhouses and facilities over there and he wouldn't have to worry about his composting toilet or whatever he's got. So back to the, so we'll give him notice. We need to get some written input from our attorney. He's going to send us some stuff. Do we have time for a work session anytime? We just going to table this off till next month? Pull things together and go with the new board? What's the preference here,
My
guys?
suggestion is if Clay can put something together, can the board member to the new board members also, to where we could review it before the next meeting, if that's possible. That'd be my suggestion.
I think that sounds like a good idea. Did you hear that? Clay put something together so that those on the incoming board would have also be able to review, everybody on the board would have a chance to review this. Clay, are you happy with that?
Sure. I mean, I don't know exactly what your criteria would be. I would just be providing you some of the
Right.
previous camping ordinances that I've written, and then you guys get to pick and choose, you know, what the details are, how long, exceptions, et cetera, all that.
Well, yeah, if you could get that this way and Sarah could distribute it so that our incoming board and the well, yeah, anyway.
Sure.
So that we all get a look at it ahead of time, we can hash this maybe to success.
What's the timeline? When do you need it by?
Well, given that the next meeting is a month away, more or less.
The next meeting is April 15th.
So, the more
I can
days
get
ahead of
it
that.
to you guys by the first week in April, probably. That works.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody got anything they want to say? Trustees? Public comment?
Okay, this is Gayla Gibb. And in the capacity of the EHA, I am not picking on anyone. In the capacity of a citizen of Pitkin, I am not picking on anyone. I just like to see our ordinances and zoning codes enforced or just do away with them. But what I will say is that now there is a second camper ensconced on that property. And so we're probably not just dealing with one. That's all, thank you.
All right,
Is someone living in the other camper?
The lights are on.
it would have appeared from the lights in the camper that something was going on inside. I can't say that they were living there.
Okay, let me find out because my understanding was it being parked there, that there wasn't anybody living in it.
Oh, well, and it's got a new 100-gallon propane tank standing up outside hooked up, so no
That's a
telling,
clue.
Todd.
That's a clue. Yeah, all right, let me find out about that too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. I think at this point, we're going to say we're going to send a notice. And we're going to wait on some input from our attorney. And we're going to read that input from our attorney prior to the next meeting and the swearing in of our new members. And we will get further along in dealing with this issue at our next meeting.
Tom, may I ask, just interject for a second? I'm out of the country the 26th of March through the 5th of May. So if you're going to send something, I'm not going to see it till after May 5th. That's just a thing.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's coming up, Todd.
Okay.
Don't know how it'll flow. Oh, we have Pete got his hand up again. Pete, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification on process. Tom, you seem to be indicating that a decision is going to be made at this time to send notice. I guess I would question if that's actually occurred. And secondly, whether or not that's within the framework of the Board of Health. If you're using the camping ordinance, perhaps that should be done by the town council. Perhaps the attorney can provide guidance.
Yes, if it were in relationship to our ordinances or our zoning code, but I had not chosen to bring either of those up. I had relied solely on Reg 43 to point out that you need an OWTS, not just a composting toilet, and that's a huge problem. Go ahead, Sarah.
Say this because I'm wondering if maybe it was just lost in translation. Attorney Bookner said that notice could be sent, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, based on the current camping ordinance.
Oh, well,
I
that,
emailed that to him. He just looked at it, and that was what he was responding to when
Oh.
he suggested sending a notice and
okay.
process that way.
So we will then have to jump out of our Board of Health classification and re-enter a
Right.
trustee meeting.
Except we cannot do that because that was not noticed for the trustee meeting, so I think it's gonna have to wait. Just for the sake of giving proper notice,
So proper notice will wait till the next meeting.
correct?
Okay. I'm sorry I blew that. It would
No,
have
you guys
well
are,
now.
that's,
ahead.
you didn't blow anything. So you can give direction to town staff and code enforcement to send a notice. That doesn't have to be, that could be the Board of Health. We can do it based on the health concerns, or you don't have to have, you're not passing a resolution or any sort of formal decision. So I don't think that's a big deal. And on top of that, notice is meant for the alleged violator, and that person's already on this call and recognized that, that you guys are recognizing a violation. Now, that said, I do think that he is going to be out of town, and it sounds like would want to be cooperative. And so I would just ask if he would accept notice, and then, and we would cooperate in making sure that he complies within a certain reasonable amount of time upon his return from wherever he's coming from. It's always best to, get coordinated cooperative effort versus having to do something contentiously. It's less expensive, it makes more sense, and you often get better results.
Okay. Thank you very much. Pete, do you still have your hand up, or is that just a little icon on the
No.
screen? Okay,
I forgot to take it down.
okay.
Thank you.
Sounds like we have a plan, guys. Sarah, does it sound like we have a plan?
If you clarify the plan, I will put that here.
Well, so he said notice did not have to be,
Well, is the gentleman still on the call?
Yes,
Mr. Adams,
Okay.
yes.
And this is all being recorded. This isn't a trick, Mr. Adams. This is, if we want to circumvent a bunch of this and the Board of Health agrees, then I would just suggest that you recognize that you have been notified that we believe a violation exists. And I would just request and ask if the board agrees to just give you until, some reasonable time upon your return to cure the violation, and then we can move on. So, I would suggest like middle or last week in May, give you a couple weeks upon your return to move the trailers, and that would be a really good
Don't
solution for everyone, in my opinion.
I think I would prefer that in writing. I like your idea, but I think writing would probably be better.
Will you provide an email or other ways? By Colorado law, we can just send it to your certified mailing address, whether you get it or not. We can count it as notice. I don't
Perfect.
like that because but we know that you're not going to get it. And so if you wanted us to give some other type of notice, maybe you could leave an email address with the
Yeah,
town
Sarah did
or
have
forwarding
that.
email. Okay,
Sarah,
perfect.
Sarah has my email address. Is that still correct, Sarah?
Is it still the CC Pizza Guy email address?
Yep.
I have that.
Okay, so just for clarification here for our attorney, we got three parties going here. We have Todd Adams, who owns the property. And then we have Billy, who owns the RV that's sitting on Todd Adams' property. So,
Yeah, it's the property owner's violation. They're ultimately in control of their property and what's on it. So
Okay.
I always say go after the owner.
okay, so the property owner knows what's going on now. So the question is, should we also, the owner of the camper, should he be notified that this has been discussed?
Doesn't hurt, but the way the code reads, it doesn't say owner or occupant. It just says owner of a property.
Right, in the code, it does not. Okay,
And this is going to be an OW, this is a violation, a health violation, not the camping violation. Is that just clarifying?
We're gonna send. Well, I'll talk to the board on that, but my suggestion is that we get direction to do both.
Okay.
Code enforcement can act unilaterally to send notice of violations. They don't need a resolution from the board, and so
I'm just wondering which way we're
that's my
going
advice to
because
the board.
the city doesn't actually have a camping ordinance that applies to unimproved property. So I just want to make sure we're going the right direction.
so, in regards to the camping ordinance of what, 2013? That says, that you can, for a limited period of time, locate your RV or camper or whatever on improved private property. And we have seen that happen in Pitkin. And the nice thing about improved private property is that you actually do have a toilet on the improved private property. You can run in somebody's house and use it, as opposed to parking out in the field and not having anywhere to dump your sewage. So there's some fine lines that probably got missed in that ordinance. but, I think the intention was, in avoidance of just allowing camping out in the trees, and, you needed to camp somewhere where you had a facility. Anyway, so we will pull this together as best we can. Look it over, and we will discuss this at the next meeting. And I guess, once again, it'll be me sitting in this chair. Is that correct, Eddie?
That's correct.
Okay, so I will have to prepare as best I can. Ed, did you have something you wanted to say? No. Okay. All right. In that case,
Hey, Tom, just a second, if you don't mind. So.
go ahead.
Just to follow up on Clay's recommendation about sending a notice. Should we pick a date right now and say it needs to be done by this date? May, whatever, or whatever the board agrees to.
Well, that's the question right now. Are we the Board of Health or are we the Board of Trustees? And right now we're the Board of Health. And the reference that Clay is using to send notice is not a Board of Health issue. It's a camping issue, which is an ordinance. So that falls on the Board of Trustees, which we're not acting as right now. So do we get to pick a date and do that?
I guess I would disagree with that somewhat. It is still a Board of Health issue because of the waste
The
disposal.
camping ordinance being a Board of Health issue?
Well, because of the waste disposal of this camper. To me, that is still a Board of Health issue.
Okay.
And I guess we could say, can we, as right now,
Ask
we're acting
Clay.
as health,
We can
set a date
just send
and say,
Just, yeah, I mean, I would just give direction to the staff here as to what day you guys want. What day you want this fixed by before you want to start issuing fines, and we'll deal with the minutia.
I didn't
so
understand.
Yes.
We can send, okay. All right, then. What is the date today? You know, nothing's gonna happen. I mean, we'll send him notice that this is in the works. But we don't have anything finalized yet. And I told him the other day this was gonna be in the works. At some
Well,
point.
once you set a date for the notice, the notice will include the final date, and then after that date, the town will start issuing fines. So it's an important day if you guys want to give the staff direction as to which date or what period you're determining is a reasonable time. So you could say something along the lines of, we direct staff to send a notice to cure the violation by May 12th or May 15th or May 1st, whatever you guys decide, and then we'll deal with the rest.
Okay. May. I think May sounds okay.
and I think as what you mentioned, Tom, we're in mud season. So what if we, I believe, be pretty graceful here and we say we want it done by May 31st. The ground ought to be dried up enough by then to get it out.
I would find nothing wrong with that. Do we need to put that to a vote?
So if we
I-
put in septic, he still
Since
has.
So my concern is, Todd, as what Clay has brought up already, is this is just a trailer. It's not a residence.
All right, so I would just give us a date because I don't want to get into I have, some legal strategy that is involved with this and what our current codes and the regulation is. We just need a date that you want it gone. I think without getting into detail, I believe the current code camping in regulation 43 covers this. And it would, if you wanted to start the ball rolling, then if you give us a date, we'll provide that in the written notice and we'll get going.
Okay. I think May 31st sounds fine to me. Anybody else have any objections or counsel? Okay, so are we in agreement then on a letter with May 31st as the end date to be gone by?
I would say yes.
Is that all we need is verbal agreement of the majority of the board? Okay. We have 1, 2, 3 in agreement. Lucinda, what do you think? Lucinda says, okay. All right, there it is. Weather should be nice by May 31st. That's Memorial Weekend.
Actually, it's
Well, how about-
the weekend after. It's after Memorial.
Actually, it is after Memorial. Okay.
Yeah, Memorial's the
keep track.
27th.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. If there is no further discussion or hand raising or issues, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Clay.
I've been gone.